The Pedal Power Association is all about promoting cyclists' safety on the roads. They're behind the hashtag Cyclists' Lives Matter campaign. The initiative focuses on the lack of prosecution of offenders responsible for fatal crashes and attacks on cyclists. The association is calling on all cyclists to show support for the campaign. For more on this, I'm joined by CEO Neil Robinson. Neil, very moving words there from Sharon Peel. Andre's death, just one of many on South Africa's roads. Can you give us, for context, some idea of how many cyclists lose their lives each year?
Hi, Annlie. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's single-figure digits every year. That's one too many, and that's what we're aiming for. So single-digit figures, but many people are hurt badly when struck by motorists or having some form of incident. So the deaths are tragic, absolutely tragic, but there's so many other incidents on the road which, number one, don't get reported, and the ones that are reported are either the person gets off through lack of evidence, or the person prosecuting doesn't have any money, so there's no legal case to be had. So there's so many issues around road tolerance of the law, of respect for cyclists and motorists. So it's a huge problem we face in South Africa. And I think today's campaign was really about bringing awareness and hopefully the start of a behaviour change amongst motorists. And we're not saying cyclists are perfect, but we are really calling on everyone to start looking at obeying the law. You know, we don't want to become a lawless society, and I think today's the beginning of a long road for us.
Neil, we're faced with an infrastructure crisis in South Africa on all levels, one that is felt very keenly by cyclists in the sense that there is just no dedicated safe space for them to practice their sport, and the fact that they need to share the road with motorists, often with no emergency lanes, no verges. We know what the roads look like in sort of the more remote areas of the country. How do we achieve better synergy and in a situation where the infrastructure is not likely to improve overnight or anytime soon?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it's a completely integrated approach which we need to take. In the Western Cape, we have a law which was promulgated a few years ago whereby motorists have to pass cyclists within a 1 metre range or more. The first step for us is to try and get that set about throughout South Africa, so that at least that's a start. The second thing we have to do is look at a non-motorized transport strategy, which then looks at every single aspect of cycling. Infrastructure is just one of them. So if you look at the environmental impact, if you look at the social impact, you look at the economic impact of bringing cycling into South Africa as a much more, let's call it, everyday occurrence. And utility cycling can really change a country like South Africa, where we have a large difference between the haves and the have-nots. So we really are looking at a long-term strategy here. It's not going to be fixed overnight, as you say, but there has to be strong political will. There has to be strong advocacy programs, which, number one, resource funds issues like this, because it'll only get worse over time if we don't do something about it. So yes, there's some short wins, but I think at the end of the day, we need to look at what is the vision for cycling going forward and what is the vision for non-motorized transport going forward. And the Pedal Power Association is very much as front and center of our initiatives going forward, is to how do we make South Africa a cycling country? Like we have a lot in, yes, they're first world countries, but if you look at how certain of the first world cities in Europe are built, they're built around many forms of transport, of which cycling is just one of them.
You mentioned some of the elements that frustrate efforts towards increased or better prosecution rates. How do you think we can achieve better prosecutions in instances where drivers are absolutely 100% at fault?
The problem is a lot of these accidents happen very early in the morning, when the cyclist may be by himself. It's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. The driver knocks him over and speeds off. if the cyclist is not capable of getting back on his bike quickly and taking a photograph of the number plate, we have no evidence. That is the problem. If you get cyclists in a group, in a bunch, yes, you might have some evidence, which fortunately happened for the Peels. It was through their pure will and the fact that they have legal counsel that they can call upon that something is going to be done about this, hopefully. But a lot of people don't have that support. So it's very difficult if it's a one-on-one situation. But and that goes to, again, infrastructure. In first world cities, they have cameras all over the place. So you can gather evidence much easier. I'm not saying we're going to get there, but it is in whatever, the mobile phone is probably the only thing out there from a technology point of view which can bring some evidence towards a reckless driver or someone who has disobeyed the law. But if we don't have that, it's difficult to start a prosecution in a legal case. Unfortunately, in this instance, we are really geared towards trying to get with the NPA, with the lawyers that the family have appointed. We are really trying to get a prosecution on this one. And the Cyclist Lives Matter campaign is a first step for us in a quite a determined direction in trying to bring change of behaviour and change in prosecution rates throughout South Africa. Because, as I said at the beginning of the conversation, one death is one death too many on our roads.
Well, thank you very much for your time and good luck with that campaign. That was Neil Robinson, CEO of Pedal Power Association. South Africa Tonight continues with your sport in just a moment.